Greetings, my fellow YouTubers. This is a shot of whiskey, and this is part 4 of my 4-part series regarding the false labels of MGTOW. This video in particular is going to be focusing on some of the more common insults that are thrown our way that, when you think about what the words actually mean, don't really make a lot of sense.
3 beers, a shot of whiskey.
The first insult that we'll cover is incel. Now, for those of you who don't know what an incel is, don't worry, we've hit up Urban Dictionary for this. We're going to start off with the third entry, because, quite frankly, the first two suck. Incel comes from involuntary celibate. It's a smushing of two words. Someone who is celibate but doesn't want to be. Move on to number 4. It is a person who, if you take the term literally, can't have sex despite wanting to. In practice, this goes beyond simply having sex and enters the realm of having no possibility of finding a partner, either to get validation, love, or acceptance from. Sex is mostly secondary, though just like in every group, a minority of incels disagrees. Wikipedia's page for incels is actually pretty good, despite it being clear and obvious that much of their information is coming from left-leaning sources. But for the most part, it is doing a pretty decent job of, I guess, trying to be balanced with the information. Incels are self-identifying members of an online subculture, discussions in incel forums are often characterized by resentment, misanthropy, self-pity, self-loathing, misogyny, racism. Racism? What?
Then another. Then another. Then another. Then another. Then another. Then another. Another.
And then there's the single sentence that makes me like these guys and hate them at the same time. It's kind of weird. The Southern Poverty Law Center describes the subculture as part of the online male supremacist ecosystem that is a member of their list of hate groups. Screw you, SPLC. And self-described incels have committed at least 4 mass murders in North America. Jeez, maybe the SPLC has a point. Further down the page, there's the history section. It's a pretty good read with a lot of information, but the 3 things we're going to point out is, at first, the term was coined by a her who went by the name of Alana online. Not sure if that's her actual name or not. It probably is not. In the middle, she expressed regret at the change in usage, with her original intention being to create an inclusive community for men and women who are sexually deprived due to social awkwardness, marginalization, or mental illness. She has since started a new project, Love Not Anger, which I have heard of that before, which she describes as a project to research how lonely people might find respectful love instead of being stuck in anger. And on the bottom of this section, there are also incel forums that disapprove of hatred, such as Reddit/incels without hate, which I think is how you say that, but I'm not sure, and dating websites that cater to incels, such as dateanincel.com. And of course, further down the page, there's also discussion of ideology, such as suicides, prostitutes, men's rights activism, this term black pill, I've never heard that one before, pickup artists. Further down, there's also the whole mental health possibilities, as well as talking about the mass murders that was mentioned earlier in this video, including the one in Upquote Community College. Now, I'm a little surprised to hear that this guy was an incel. I didn't know about that aspect, and okay, a little bit of a sidetrack conversation. Some of you know that I work at a community college. Well, the college that I work at is part of the same athletic organization that Umpqua is part of. It's called NWAC. I don't remember exactly what that stands for, but my school and Umpqua are actually part of the same division within this conference. In fact, as I recall correctly, our volleyball teams faced off like the week after the shooting had happened. So I'm a little surprised to hear that. So, but I guess it's not too out of bounds. Anyways, back on topic. So I think the reason why a lot of people see MGTOW as being incels and use that term as an insult towards us is because MGTOW typically, depending on which ones you look at, don't have relations with women. But where these idiots don't seem to understand is, in the case of MGTOW, it's a choice, whereas with incels, it's not. Now, could there be people who identify as MGTOW who are also incels? Yeah, it's possible, but theoretically, that's not what MGTOW is about. It's about making the decision not to pursue, which is in complete contradiction to what an incel is. And like I've said before in previous videos, most MGTOW tend to have experienced something negative involving relationships, which means that the incel definition does not apply to them. So let's go ahead and move on to the next insult. Cuck, which I will agree with a lot of left-leaning critics that the insult is used quite a bit online. But what exactly is a cuck? Well, for those of you who don't know, this definition, according to Urban Dictionary, I actually think is a very fitting one. It is a man who is desperate for acceptance, approval, and affection from women. This desperation has led to the compromise of his beliefs and values, the desecration of his dignity and self-worth, and his inability to stand up for himself and what he deserves as a human being, such as loyalty, fidelity, and honesty in a romantic relationship. The next definition adds on something else. Often the man lets her do whatever she wants and treats him like shit. Oddly enough, it's not until you get to the sixth definition that you see someone who has leftist views, politically speaking, as being a definition of cuck. Now, it should be noted, now this is according to Wikipedia, that the term cuck is an abbreviation of cuckold. And politically speaking, the term has been used by the alt-right, again according to this, to attack the masculinity of an opponent. It was originally aimed at other conservatives whom the alt-right saw as ineffective. Also on the Wikipedia page for the term cuckold, the word derives from the cuckoo bird, alluding to its habits of laying its eggs in other birds' nests. Now you'll also see here in this French picture that everybody here has horns. And the reason why is because in Western tradition, this was an allusion to the mating habits of stags, who forfeit their mates when they are defeated by another male. You'll also see in the middle of this picture that's up here that Shakespeare's poetry often referred to cuckolds. Now, I'm not that familiar with his poetry, but I do know that there are a couple of plays in which the term cuckold is used. My favorite examples are Hamlet. In Act 4, you see Laertes making that claim, which, by the way, this right column here is a kind of modernized translation to make things easier. This stuff is from No Fear Shakespeare, by the way, in case you guys are curious. And there's also a reference in Othello, in which Othello is upset because he's under the impression that his wife is cheating on him. And he's really, really bad. Which, by the way, for those of you who haven't read Othello, he actually does kill his wife. As far as an insult towards MGTOW is concerned, the term cuck does not make a lot of sense. I really believe that the majority of people who call us cucks do so because it's the popular insult of the day, and they're just too fucking stupid to come up with something creative and original. It could also be possible that, going back to the political aspects on the Wikipedia page, they do it to attack our masculinity because they see us as being ineffective. That's possible. However, cuck is literally the opposite of what a MGTOW is. Basically, it's about being submissive to women, putting their needs, their wants above your own, suffering for her well-being. MGTOW are against that. They're the complete opposite of that. It's all about us. And I know that sounds kind of arrogant, but comparing it to cuck, it's kind of fitting. We're trying to make ourselves better people. We're trying to pursue our goals. We're trying to be successful. And you can't do that if you're basically a woman's floor mat. That's where the term cuck fails in regards to being a MGTOW insult. Now, if you're somebody who gets easily offended by words, you may not like this next one. Faggot. Or simply queer, or fudgepacker, or cock jockey, or poof, or homosexual, or quite frankly, anything that means gay. Now, to be fair to the outsiders, maybe they don't fully understand what MGTOW actually is and are as such making a giant leap of logic with why they think that we're all homosexuals. Maybe they see MGTOW as basically just being like an all boys club of some sorts, or perhaps like a monastery where we stay clear of women because so sinful, OMG. But to be entirely honest, I think they're really missing the mark with this. Maybe the confusion comes from the fact that some women who embrace feminism go lesbian. I don't know. But to make things clear, just because men go their own way, it doesn't mean they go their own way up another man's butt. It doesn't work that way. I'm sorry to disappoint you with that. We don't give a crap if somebody is gay. Whoop-de-doo, good for you. But that's not what it means to be a MGTOW. In fact, it's kind of contradictory to what it means to be MGTOW. MGTOW is about going your own way, not changing the way you pursue relationships. So I hope that makes sense as we get into the last section of this video. Deadbeats, mama's boys, losers, cowards, and pretty much any other anti-male insult that you can think of that someone might want to hurl in our direction. I'm going to focus on these four specifically, mostly because they're the ones that I hear the most that also annoy me the most. Let's go ahead and start off with, fuck it, mama's boys. Remember, MGTOW is about independence. Perfect timing, right? So, being coddled by mommy is kind of contradictory to MGTOW philosophy in general. I mean, if you want to compare it to other insults that have been done, it's kind of more like what an incel would be. Losers, I hate to say it, does make sense as an insult directed towards MGTOW. Because after all, many MGTOW, not all, but many MGTOW have lost some sort of battle against women in today's society. You got divorce court, you got family court, you've got false rape accusations, you've got affirmative action. I mean, it's a losing battle no matter how you look at it. I mean, okay, so I'm using the Cleveland Browns as an example here. It would be like the Cleveland Browns going against the New England Patriots, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Green Bay Packers all at the same time, with the referees being the coaching staff of those three teams. I mean, the Browns against any one of those three teams is normally an unfair fight anyways, even when the refs are unbiased. But we're in a situation to where no matter what, the Browns are going to lose. And with the way that reality is nowadays, it's like that for us men who go down these particular paths. We are going into a game that's completely rigged against us. So yeah, I suppose it does kind of make sense to call us losers because of that. I would still say that loser is an inaccurate term because, in my opinion, being the loser would be not learning from your mistakes, whereas MGTOW have learned from their mistakes or from the mistakes of other people and are avoiding those situations at all costs. If anything, that makes them winners, in my opinion. Now, as for a coward, well, they don't even make the effort. So I guess that's part of the reason why some people would say that MGTOW are cowards. But is it really cowardice to avoid going into something that, statistically speaking, is going to screw you over? More people get divorced now than ever. I mean, the latest numbers that I saw, I think, was something along the lines of 64% of marriages ending in divorces in certain parts of the country. That's insane. And considering that men are far more likely to get screwed over in the courts in the event of a divorce, that would mean that more men are more likely to feel the sting. So why even bother doing that? Why bother destroying your credit score? Why bother going into bankruptcy over a woman. It does not make sense. It's not cowardice to understand this, it's intelligence. Deadbeats was what I had mentioned first when I was introducing this final section, because of these four, it's the one that pisses me off the most. And as such, it's also the one that I wanted to analyze last. We all know that typically when people hear the term deadbeats, they mean a man who's not taking responsibility for his children. So let's first of all point out to the fact that not all MGTOW are fathers. I'm not really sure if there's ever been a study showing how many MGTOW are parents versus how many have never produced children, but I can definitely say that many MGTOW are not parents. I can also say that many MGTOW are parents, such as myself. And there's other YouTubers that I've mentioned before in the past who are MGTOW who are also fathers. A great example is Terrence Popp. I have never heard of a MGTOW, whether they were ever a father or not, say that a man should not be responsible for their children. In fact, if anything, they say that the men should be more involved, if at all possible. But, as I've mentioned, the system is totally rigged against us and actually prevents us from being responsible fathers in many situations. Again, this is an example of the complete opposite of what MGTOW believe. And if you do find a MGTOW who believes that any man who's ever produced a child should avoid their parental responsibility, kick them in the balls. Well, that concludes this series, and I guarantee you the next video I'm going to do will have nothing to do with MGTOW. So in the meantime, may you all have a wonderful Independence Day. America, fuck you!